Hi, this is Jon Rosen for Kings Vision. We're here with Brent McEwen, amateur scout in Western Canada with the Los Angeles Kings. Brent, thank you very much for joining us here today from high above New York City.
Yeah, no, it's been a good couple of days so far.
And, of course, the NHL Draft coming up on Sunday. We want to get a sense of some of the players that you've seen throughout Western Canada, the Western United States as well. But first, can you just give us a general sense of how the Los Angeles Kings, with so many different scouts, so many different regions, are able to find that consensus, help put that list together, and just how that process goes about?
I think Mike and Mark do a really good job of just sort of, including everybody in the process, and Lee has kind of been coordinated the whole thing. But I think, we've been together now for quite a few years since Dean's come in. This group has been together, so I think we've, found a way. And again, they've done a good job of sort of including everybody, working through, and then we sort of come together at our meetings and just kind of, go through the process of placing the players. They've got a general idea of where they're going, and then we do some comparisons and that kind of thing, and sort of come up with a consensus. And at the end of the day, Mike and Mark have the final say. But I think they've done a really good job of putting it together and sort of including the group. And it's not a big group. We got a small group compared to a lot of other staffs, and I think we've worked together for quite a while and worked well.
Brent, a lot of what has been said about this draft here in 2013 is that there is a very good amount, it seems. Of course, it's all in hindsight, of course, when this all becomes clearer, but there's a lot of talent here. Can you just give us a sense of where that talent is and how it compares to that 2003 draft? 10 years ago, that draft always also has a lot made of it, the amount of talent that was in that draft as well? Or is that something that's only able to really view in hindsight when you get a couple years past it?
Yeah, there is a lot of talent, right now that as junior players and that sort of thing. But really, it's how they develop from today or tomorrow onward, and it's really difficult to compare 10 years ago, because 10 years ago we see how the end result has been, but it's good. I mean, I think our teams are going to be happy with what they get in the first round and second round, and they're going to find guys later on. It always seems to be that way, that you can find guys. But I think at the top end, there's a lot of good players, and it's fairly deep. That some years if you pick in the top 3 or 4, you're happy, and then after that it's a bit of a shotgun from that point on. But I think you'll get deeper right through the first round here today, and to compare, I think you'll compare in 10 years when this group's done.
Now, when you look at the Western Hockey League, you see a lot of WHL games. The stigma that the Western Hockey League has is that it produces a lot of taller, big, sturdy defensemen. At least that's somewhat the stigma, at least. Looking at it this year, obviously from the high end, there is Seth Jones, 6'4" defenseman. He's going to go in the top 3, top 4. But what you're looking at right now, how closely to what you see from the Western Hockey League this year fits within that narrative, perhaps? And what can you tell us about the style of talent that you're seeing coming from out west?
Well, I think defensemen, the last number of years in the West, defensemen in general have been good. I think and not necessarily just big ones. I mean, you had a lot of guys in that 6 foot, 5'11", 6'1" range who have really turned out to be good players and were drafted high. I mean, last year a number of guys were drafted in the first round, defensemen. This year there's some of those guys again, those 5'11", 6'1" guys that are really good defensemen in the Western League. And then you got another group of about 5, 6, 7 guys who are draft eligible that go from 6'4" to 6'7", and they're all a little bit more project guys. Maybe have to get quicker feet, quicker hands, got to do this. But I think a number of them have potential, and it'll go probably in rounds 3 to 7, and may turn out. So there's some big guys. But in general, I think you notice in a lot of the leagues right now, there's some big players that are out there, and a lot of them move really well. I mean, maybe they got to think better, and they got to do that, and that's what you'll try to develop with them. But there's a lot of big players that move well, and more so than I think years past, just because of the way the rules have changed. And because of the rule change, players have adjusted. The big guys have learned how to skate better than maybe they did, 7, 8 years ago. So it's interesting. We've got a lot of them in the West, but again, some of them are projects, and we'll see how they go.
When you're talking about those players, rounds 3 through 7, every team looking to find that value in the draft, is there any particular intangible that you can identify that you see in a lot of players that tend to outperform where they're drafted? Whether it's obviously the work ethic has to be high, but is there anything that you can pinpoint that kind of unites those players that find themselves on National Hockey League rosters when they might have been 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks?
I think that you get highly skilled guys maybe that are small, get drafted late, and and they find a way to make it, or they grow all of a sudden and that kind of stuff. So you get those guys who can come up and make it. But probably if there's an intangible, it might be, I think it is, that they all have a will to do whatever it takes to try to make it. And if they're a 6th, 7th, 8th round pick, they must have the will maybe to get better, to work on their game, to be determined, and they take that into their summer training, into everything they do to prepare to play. And those guys tend to find a way to get themselves into lineups and work their way, through the American League into the NHL and that kind of stuff. So that's probably one of the biggest things. And I think skill's the other one. I mean, guys that are skilled and, maybe they're not, maybe they're a little softer in junior and they fall, all of a sudden find a little bit of that hardness to their game, or they figure it out. I mean, we talk about that a lot. If this guy figures it out, he's going to be a good player. Well, some guys figure it out and some guys don't figure it out, and I think that's, you hope you can figure out which ones, and it's difficult to sort of explain, but it is an intangible, and it's a drive, an internal drive the player has.
We also want to continue to talk with Brent McEwen here. One more question coming up here about goaltending. The Kings obviously having Jonathan Quick, whose contract kicks in 10 years this coming season. You look out west, too. There are a couple of quality goaltenders. You look at in Tri-City, there's Eric Comrie. In Edmonton, Tristan Jarry. In Everett, there's Austin Lotz. Is there anything that you've seen from any of those goaltenders? First of all, whether the Kings are looking to really go after and nab a goaltender, or they're looking for the best player available. But anything in those three goaltenders that might be appealing to the LA Kings?
Well, I think, they're good goaltenders. Goaltenders are trending to be bigger. I think Jerry's 6'1", Comrie's 6'1". They're not real big guys, but they're awfully big enough. I think Lots is 6 feet. One of the big things is just sort of, you got the technical aspects of it. Are they athletes? Do they move well? The technical part you can work on. The athleticism they've got to have, the desire to never quit on shots. And we do have. I think those three guys you mentioned are good goaltenders. Comrie, maybe in the West, has probably separated himself a little bit from those guys in my mind. And as the Kings are going to pick, I think it's the best player. And if they end up being where we pick, and which is late second, they'll figure it out at that time what we're going to do. But there's some good goaltenders, as there are in other places as well.
Brent, final question here, and you're always looking for the best player available. I know that even though the Kings don't have that first-round draft pick right now, and I know the approach doesn't change with what the Kings are looking to do. And again, is it looking to get that best player available, or are you looking perhaps second, third picks onwards, trying to find players that might fit a spot down the road? How would you describe just the process of entering this draft without right now a first-round draft pick?
Yeah, I don't think it's filling the spot because, and especially if you're looking at later on, the spot you may need to fill today, well, if that player is ready to play in 5 or 6 years, that spot may already be filled. So that's why they always talk about taking the best player, because that player you're drafting today will not fix the weakness you may have today. And so you want the best player, because the best player you can maybe turn into an asset that'll fill a spot for you down the road. And so that's why they do that. So as we go forward, I know Mike and Mark always talk about the best player available, and that's what we would do at the time.
Well, there you go. Some great draft insight right here from Los Angeles Kings amateur scout in Western Canada, Brent McEwen. Brent, thanks so much for joining us here on Kings Vision.
John, thank you.